Most people ask the wrong question during a zombie outbreak. They ask how many infected are outside, whether the zombies move quickly, and if a locked door will hold. But the real issue is much worse. We must look at the specific kind of infection that created them. Because a slow bite virus gives humanity time to react, a rage virus can destroy a city before the news understands what happened. A fungal infection can turn buildings into contaminated territory, and a lab-made mutation can stop following normal rules completely. So today we are breaking down the major types of zombie viruses and zombie infections across movies, games, comics, and survival fiction. We are not just looking at which zombie looks the scariest, but which infection actually ends the world the fastest. And yes, people call all of them zombie viruses, but that is not always accurate. Some are viruses, some are fungi, some are parasites, and others are engineered bioweapons. But in pop culture, they all do the same basic thing. They take a human being and turn that person into a threat. First, the classic reanimation virus. This is the old-school nightmare. The dead come back. The body is slow, damaged, and simple, but it keeps moving. The most famous versions come from George A. Romero's zombie films, and later from The Walking Dead. This type usually spreads through bites, but the deeper danger is the rule behind the outbreak. In The Walking Dead, every person is already infected. That means every natural death, every accident, every hospital room, every nursing home, every prison cell, and every battlefield can create a new walker. At first, this type seems survivable. The infected are slow, they do not use tools, and they do not plan. A healthy adult can usually escape one walker in an open street. But one walker is not the apocalypse, whereas 10,000 walkers are. Classic reanimation does not end the world in minutes. It ends the world through delay, panic, bad information, and people refusing to accept what is happening. Hospitals collapse first, police get overwhelmed, families hide bites, and governments wait too long to tell the truth. Second, the rage virus. This is where the clock disappears. In 28 days later, the rage virus does not create traditional Walking Dead. It creates living infected who are violent, fast, and dangerous almost immediately. That is what makes this type so dangerous because it attacks the one thing humans need during a crisis, which is time. With classic walkers, a bitten person may hide symptoms for hours. With rage infected, a person can become a threat before anyone in the room can process what happened. This is particularly dangerous in a subway car, a school hallway, an emergency room, or a packed highway after a crash. Rage outbreaks hit cities hard because dense crowds become fuel. Barricades help, but only after you already survived the first wave. The weakness is that rage-infected are still living organisms. They can starve, they can collapse from exposure, and they can be stopped by normal physical limits. But that only matters later, because the first 48 hours are the real threat. Third, the fungal infection. The Last of Us made this type famous for a modern audience. This is not a normal virus, but a cordyceps-inspired fungal infection that changes behavior, takes over the body, and creates stages, from runners to clickers and bloaters. A rage virus destroys the first day, while a fungal infection owns the long term. It can make the world itself feel contaminated. Buildings matter, moisture matters, and spores, tunnels, sealed rooms, old basements, abandoned hotels, and underground systems all become part of the danger. You are not only asking if there is an infected person nearby, but whether the air is safe or if the building remains sealed for 20 years. Real cordyceps does not create human monsters, but as fiction, this type works very well because the rules are clear. Masks, spores, silence, quarantine zones, old cities, and the fear of entering places that have been closed too long. Fourth, the bioweapon mutation virus. This is Resident Evil territory. The T-virus, G-virus, Las Plagas, Ouroboros, C-virus, and the rest of Resident Evil's infection tree are not just zombie makers, they are mutation engines. A regular person can become a shambling zombie. A scientist can become something much worse. A parasite can create control, and a virus can create creatures that no survival manual prepared for. This is where the zombie outbreak stops being a disease and becomes an arms race. The scariest part is that Raccoon City fills with zombies, and Umbrella and other groups keep experimenting. Every containment failure creates new variants like dogs, lickers, tyrants, nemesis, and hunters, which are creatures that do not fit the normal zombie category anymore. In a classic outbreak, once you understand the rules, you can adapt. In a mutation outbreak, the rules keep changing. One infected is slow, the next climbs walls, the next tracks targets, and the next survives damage that should stop it. Fifth, the airborne infection. This is the type that breaks every comfort rule. With bite-based zombies, distance helps, walls help, and clean wounds help. You can look at an infected and know where the danger is. But with airborne infection, the threat may already be inside the room before anyone shows symptoms. I Am Legend is a strong example of a viral disaster that spreads beyond normal containment, creating Darkseekers, and leaving Robert Neville in a world where immunity is the only reason anyone is still alive. Airborne infection changes the outbreak from combat survival to environmental survival. You are not fighting only bodies, you are fighting ventilation. Apartment buildings become dangerous, airplanes become nightmares, hospitals become launch points, masks become weapons, and filters become currency. The problem is that airborne infection can be almost too strong for fiction. If it spreads easily, turns people quickly, and mutates almost everyone, the story ends before it begins. So the strongest fictional versions usually add limits: immunity, incubation time, sunlight weakness, mutation stages, or geographic containment. Sixth, the carrier infection. This one is underrated, and in some ways it is the most realistic nightmare for a survivor group. A carrier infection means a person can spread the disease before anyone knows he is infected. Maybe he has no symptoms. Maybe she is hiding a bite. Maybe the fever takes hours. Maybe the test is unreliable, or maybe the infection only activates after death. This is not about the strongest zombie, but about trust collapsing. World War Z, especially in the book version, understands this well. The outbreak spreads through human systems like bad reports, black markets, denial, travel, weak preparation, and people waiting too long to react. The carrier type destroys shelters from inside. A group can handle a fence, and a group can ration food. But once people believe someone inside may already be infected, every cough becomes political, every locked door becomes suspicious, and every medical check becomes a fight. Seventh, the parasite infection. This one sits between virus horror and body control horror. Parasites can create a different kind of zombie because they do not need to simply destroy the host. They can use the host, control the host, change behavior, and keep the body moving with purpose. Resident Evil 4's Las Plagas is one of the best-known examples. The infected are not just dead bodies walking around. They can organize, use weapons, respond to leaders, and behave with more structure than classic zombies. A slow walker cannot open a locked gate with a plan, but a parasite-controlled host might. A classic zombie follows noise, whereas a parasite-infected group might patrol. The weakness is transmission. Many parasite stories need close contact, implantation, contaminated food, or controlled exposure. That makes them easier to contain than a fully airborne virus. But once a parasite has a stable village, cult, laboratory, or command structure, it becomes very hard to remove. Eighth, the evolved Horde infection. This is the Days Gone and Left 4 Dead problem. The infected are not all the same. Some are fast, some are loud, some are exceptionally large, some act as living alarms, and some overwhelmed by numbers. In Days Gone, the Freakers are living infected with mutations, hordes, infected wildlife, and different behavior patterns. In Left 4 Dead, special infected change the battlefield every few seconds, including boomers, hunters, smokers, tanks, and witches. This type is dangerous because it punishes routine. In a normal zombie world, once you know how the infected move, you build a method. You clear a room, you avoid alleys, you stay quiet, and you conserve ammunition. But in an evolved Horde outbreak, the infection creates roles. One infected finds you, one disables you, one draws the Horde, One breaks the barricade, and another forces you to move. The key task is to determine which zombie virus type ends the world fastest. For first-day chaos, the rage virus wins. A fast infection window inside a major city is almost impossible to control. Police, hospitals, and emergency services would become part of the outbreak before they could organize. For global reach, airborne infection may be worse. If it spreads through planes, airports, hospitals, and offices before symptoms appear, the world loses before the first evacuation order. For long-term survival, fungal infection and evolved horde infection are terrifying because they transform territory. They create buildings, migration patterns, and zones people cannot safely reclaim. The carrier infection is the most unfair because no group can survive long if it cannot trust its own people. The bioweapon mutation virus is the most unpredictable because the second humans start engineering the outbreak, the infected stop following simple rules. But the final answer is this. The worst zombie virus is not the one that creates the strongest monster, but rather the one that gives humans the least time to understand the rules. So, if we must choose the one that ends the world fastest, the worst combination is airborne spread, short incubation, rage behavior, and hidden carriers during the first stage. That is the true nightmare. A person who looks normal getting on a plane in the morning, infecting hundreds of people by noon, and turning violent before sunset. That is how the world ends fast. Not because humanity is weak, because humanity is connected.